Never had these before, so.
Good.
Little baby
I love
bells.
these little
Little
Gouda.
pieces.
Goes off. There she is.
Oh,
Alanis.
How you doing?
Hi, how you doing?
I was hoping
sweet, few snacks. Cliff brought snacks.
Me, okay, President.
you.
That's what I'm saying.
Chair Brown, we are good to go.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. Want to welcome you to the first Commission on Equity meeting for 2023. I hope that everyone had a joyous holiday season, and we're all ready to do some great things in 2023. So we'll start today by accepting a motion to approve the consent agenda and previous meeting minutes and the current agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval of the agenda and the meeting minutes of December 27th.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that we accept the agenda, previous meeting minutes and the consent items. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda for today, public comments. I didn't see any written public comments that we received. Okay. Do we have any Zoom comments that we received?
Chair Brown, there is no one on Zoom at this time.
Okay, and phone, did anyone call in? Do we have anyone on the phone who would like to make comments?
There's no one on the phone, Chair Brown.
Okay, and email, none, okay,
And in
How about in person?
and in person, yes. You have a public comment with us, joining us? Okay, okay, would you like to state your name for the record? Dr. Goodwin, all right, thank you. So then we'll move in to our inspirational item for today, and Commissioner Kim Sauer. How's that?
Hello. Happy Lunar New Year. It was Lunar New Year yesterday, and 2023 is the year of the Black Rabbit. In Asia, of course, we have 12 different animals that are representing each year. So rabbits are gentle and clever, and I hope you get to add relaxation, quietness, and stuff like that in New Year with everything else that's going on. So I thought I will share the book that I enjoy time to time, which is Meditation by Marcus Aurelius. And I have a couple of quotes that I would like to share with all of you. And okay, so first one is, the happiness of your life depending upon the quality of your thoughts. Therefore, guard accordingly and take care that you entertain no notions unsuitable to virtue and reasonable nature. It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. I thought it was kind of appropriate as we starting new year. And then one more, if I may. If intelligence is something we have in common, then reason too, which makes us rational being. It's something we have in common. If so, then reason that dictates what we should and shouldn't do is also something we have in common. If so, then law too is something we have in common. If so, then we are fellow citizens. If so, then we have some form of society in common. If so, then the universe is a kind of community. Since the universe is the only shared society that anyone should describe as common to the entire human race. I just wanted to share that because I see us as a child of the universe, and we just deserve to be loved and cared as such. not too concerned about like where you from, what race, gender, age, whether you know, have a lot of money, whether you're a mammal or reptile, plants. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. That is wonderful and very insightful. Thank you very much for that. Great. So now we'll move into our business items for the day. And the first one is advisory board compensation and demographic data discussion led by Shannon.
Well, good evening, commissioners. It's good to see you all here in 2023. Like Chair Brown just mentioned, we are going to be talking about our advisory board compensation. And this was something that we had discussed earlier as part of our work plan and as part of the DEI strategic plan. So let me share the screen so we can start this presentation. And Commissioner Sauer, can you see the screen? Fantastic. Well, so the first thing I just wanted to highlight, the purpose of tonight is just for discussion. This is our kind of initial touch point, and then we'll certainly be coming back to this conversation at least one, if not two, future Commission on Equity meetings. So we're here really tonight just to really get your perspective and point of view as we continue to pursue this potential program. When we're looking at the program as we've kind of seen it and based on other jurisdictions information, we believe that, should the city implement a program where advisory board members were to be compensated as part of their service for volunteering and to offset, financial impacts, it's likely to cost the city, somewhere between $20,000 to $45,000 each year, and that is assuming a full year. So if a program was implemented halfway through the year, that would certainly be variable, and then moving on to the next full year. This is subject to change, though, depending on the potential input that you all provide and the direction the city ultimately ends up pursuing. I did want to highlight that, like I mentioned before I started the presentation, that this was something we were going to look into as part of the diversity, equity, inclusion strategic plan, as well as something that was identified in the 2023 work plan, specifically here in Q1 to research and review potential compensation opportunities for advisory body members. And by the end of this quarter, hopefully come with a recommendation for the full city council to consider. So you have all of this information in your packets tonight, and I'm just going to briefly go over everything that was in there. And I just want to start by setting the stage with what this looks like at the city. So currently the city has 9 advisory boards, but it also participates in a number of regional boards as well, where the city may have 1 representative, or there might be multiple representatives depending on the regional board. There are also times where the city has ad hoc advisory boards, and the example I provided in the staff report was the recent work group on homelessness that the city had running back in 2020, 2021, and even into 2022 with some recommendations. And so when we mean ad hoc, this means that it is kind of a limited time. It's not a permanent advisory body, but they are serving the city for a very specific purpose. Provided more information on each of the advisory bodies in the City Council Policies and Procedures Manual, as well as the Advisory Body Handbook. So you can get in both of those materials just a general overview of what all of the advisory bodies do, and what their meeting frequency is and how many members there are. So I know the seeing this now, I can see the font is very small here, but this is also provided in the packet, so you can pull this up online. But depending on the work plan and what's going on and the timeline, advisory boards here at the city can meet anywhere between 1 and 25 times per year. So for example, just to run quickly through this list and show what it's showing, it's got all of our advisory boards listed. In addition, there are notation when it's a regional board, or perhaps when there is a board that might not just strictly be volunteers. And then also boards that include Lacey Youth Council members, And I just want to make a note that at this time, there are no active temporary or ad hoc advisory boards. But like I said, there are certainly going to be opportunities in the future. You know, we've discussed at a previous Commission on Equity meeting that there could be an opportunity, for example, for a art task force in the future. And that would be a ad hoc and then potentially evaluated by the city for the future. So you can see on the next column over are the number of members listed. And as I mentioned, the members listed do not include the Lacey Youth Council members, although they are very important members to our advisory bodies. We didn't want to double count since they are considered with the Lacey Youth Council. You can see the general meeting frequency, and I just wanted to say general because that doesn't mean that there couldn't be more meetings. This is just kind of the standard. And you can see through this list that it really varies. You know, the Board of Park Commissioners, for example, that we're going to meet with on Wednesday, like the Commission on Equity meets once a month. You have other boards that, you know, meet 4 times a year, maybe 6 times a year, and maybe it just really depends on what's going on. So based off of the general meeting frequency, we have done kind of a projection of what the total anticipated meetings per a general year would be. And you can see, you know, this ranges anywhere from 1 to 24 with the Planning Commission, since the Planning Commission does meet twice a month. And then what I also included is the total meetings for 2022. So just to give you an example of what a year looks like. And so you can see our youth council had the most meetings with 20 meetings last year, followed by our planning commission. And then you can see there are several other advisory bodies that met around 10, 11, 12 times a year. So I'll take a pause here and just see if there's any questions on advisory boards from the commission at this point.
So the once a month, 12 and 16, those were like meeting with the council, the joint meeting with Parks Commission, those types of things.
Yep, great question, Chair Brown. So you can see with the Commission on Equity, we have a monthly meeting. But in addition to that, to the point that you just made, we met twice with the Lacey City Council. We met with the Lacey Youth Council. So those are all taken into account when we're looking at the total meetings.
So this is Kim. What about the events that we are attending, like Juneteenth events and so forth? Do we count these?
That's a great question, Commissioner Sauer. And on table A, those events are not included. And part of the reason they're not included for these purposes, and I certainly think that could be part of the discussion, is that this was actually public meetings. So when we had a kind of recognized public meeting that there was going to be a quorum of members. So if you recall, the last time we did the Lacey Cultural Celebration, we never had a quorum of members. We had 2 members, you know, per each time frame. And so that way we never hit that 4th threshold to make it a actual public meeting.
What about the oh gosh, what was it? The meeting that we had, it was for the public.
Focus group meetings?
Yes, sorry, the focus group meeting. Sorry, my brain can't focus right now. Would that be something that would be counted?
Yeah, Commissioner Hart, so that would be included for a total meeting because that was a public meeting with quorum. That amazingly enough happened back in 2021. So that's
Right.
why it's not included as
Yeah.
part of this list, but correct, it would have.
All right.
So when a policy is formally agreed to by the council eventually later on, it would apply to all these, or might it apply to some and not others? I see one of them that's prohibited from, as I look further through that. But as far as this list, the reimbursement policy would apply to all of these.
So Commissioner
At this
Jackson, yeah, so that's one of the things we want to walk through and talk through as part of tonight's meeting and get some feedback on some direction. And as we'll see in a couple of slides, jurisdictions do this very differently. And so that is one of the things to take into account and to think about.
Right.
So total anticipated meetings But then there's room in the budget for any other called public meeting for these to go to. Like it's anticipated would be, was 12, but then we went 16, but then you'd have to have wording that included the extra meetings.
So Vice Chair Brown, if I'm understanding your question correctly, and please correct me if I'm not. So you're saying if a stipend program was implemented, you'd have to budget in those potential additional meetings. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's part of a consideration that we want to talk about here in the future. But so what I would say is at this point in time, there is nothing budgeted specifically for this purpose. So this would certainly be something that, if it is continuing to move forward, we'd have to take back to the city council for a potential budget amendment.
Details.
Yes, there would be a lot of details, as we'll find out here in a couple
Yeah.
of slides that we'll need to work out.
Yeah, I guess one final question. What if commissioners are representing the city of Lacey at a particular event? Example, like we're scheduled to make a presentation at the senior citizens facility, things like as representatives of the city of Lacey.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and Commissioner Sauer raised, a very similar question with, the Lacey Cultural Celebration, and certainly Chair, something that it sounds like we need to consider as we continue to look at these types of programs. So Table B takes the information from Table A and just provides kind of a estimate of total time expended per a advisory body member. Now, what I will say is this is an estimate. So what Table B assumes is that every meeting lasts exactly 90 minutes, no more, no less.
Just blew it there.
And what I will say from the experience of this board is I don't think we've had a single meeting last just 90 minutes. So note that this is an estimate and kind of just for the purposes of understanding what the total hourly impact is per each advisory board. So you can see that the last column is the new column here, and what this is showing is the total hours expended per a member. And so, for example, with the Board of Park Commissioners, with having 13 meetings in 2022, it's estimated that they expended around 19 and a half hours, assuming that all of their meetings were exactly 90 minutes. What I do want to highlight is very much like the previous table, what you see is that the Planning Commission, the Youth Council, and the Commission on Equity expended the most time in 2022 strictly for public meetings. So to provide just an overview of stipend programs, the purpose of these programs is really to help reduce barriers to participation in government and increase the representation on advisory boards, which is one of the tasks that the Commission on Equity is tasked with as part of the ordinance, is looking for ways to increase participation and remove barriers. And the way that stipend programs reduce barriers is by offsetting potential costs incurred by participating. So in particular, potential financial impacts of attending meetings. And I'll give the example of, the option between picking up an extra shift or, going to an advisory board meeting. So being able to overcome the impact that would take financially to be able to participate. In addition, there are a lot of other expenses, for individuals to be able to get out and whether it's, in person or remote, be able to provide and participate fully in meetings. So some other example impacts for expenses include childcare coverage, expenses for transportation, expenses for internet access. And there could be other direct financial impacts not taken into account, but these were some of the big ones when taking a look at public meetings. The other thing I wanted to highlight in the research on stipend programs is that other jurisdictions also commented on the potential for a stipend program to reduce potential burnout of existing members. In that, too often we find that there are a few people in the community who spend a lot of time on advisory boards. And because they are going to meeting after meeting after meeting, it quickly becomes something that is no longer a joy to them. So to avoid that burnout by increasing the participation of individuals in the community.
Does the city of Lacey have restrictions on how many commissions or boards a person, an individual can be on at the same time?
Chair Brown, that's a great question. And the way I have read through the policies and procedures is there isn't a limitation on that. However, I don't know if that has been the case where somebody has served on multiple boards at the same time, but I do know that that does happen in other places. But again, I think too, in addition to just serving on a number of boards at one time, it's also, continuing to serve on a board because maybe there aren't a lot of applications. So you've been serving on a board for 6 years because you recognize that the city needs somebody to be a part of this board. So in research on stipend programs, there are a couple of considerations and this body has already hit on a couple of them, which is fantastic. So the first one is about stipend amounts. So there is no, set limitation. There is no state statute. A lot of jurisdictions do stipend amounts very different from each other. A couple of things that I did want to highlight is, and this is the first one is something that the city will look more in depth into, and this is liability considerations. So as part of being a volunteer, there is a federal law that protects volunteers from personal liability if, among other requirements, volunteers do not receive anything in value in excess of $500. So that's certainly something we want to take a look at and do more research on what could be the potential impacts for volunteers with the Volunteer Protection Act. The other thing I wanted to highlight is a study that the UW does. It's University of Washington, and that's the self-sufficiency standard. And this defines the income working families need to meet a minimum yet adequate level, taking into account family composition, ages of children, and geographic differences in costs. And so they do this for every single county across the state. And this provides, a level of what you would need to make to be self-sufficient in various counties, depending again on your family composition. So in your packet, I provided a link to the full study so you can take a look at that in more detail. But I did want to highlight the 2020 self-sufficiency standard for Thurston County, assuming one adult and a preschooler, was $21.51 to $24.07. And again, that's 2020 self-sufficiency standard. The UW does this study every 3 years. So I would anticipate, that we will be seeing an updated number here in the next couple of months.
That's a pretty incredible number for just one adult and one child, that when our minimum wage is 14 now or something, that's a lot of money people need.
It's about 50 grand a year.
Is that a hourly wage for then like 40 hours a week, or am I understanding?
Correct, Commissioner Sauer. And the full study, again, I did provide a link so you can take a look at that. But yes, that is the idea of, being self-sufficient for a 40-hour work week. So the next question that came up, or the next element of stipend programs and doing the research, is stipend awardees. And again, this varies across jurisdictions. So there are cities and counties that provide all members the same stipend across the board. There are jurisdictions that provide stipends only to members experiencing financial hardships. And then there are other jurisdictions that provide tiers of stipends based on financial circumstances. And one other thing I would add too, that many of these jurisdictions that provide either all members the same stipend or tiers of stipends is there's typically also an opt-out function where an advisory board member could say, no, I don't want to be paid for providing my services on this advisory board. And then the third element is the advisory board application. And Commissioner Jackson, I think this goes to your point of, well, which advisory boards? And so again, this really varies depending on the jurisdiction. So through the research, there are places where the stipend is provided to all advisory boards, regardless of whether it's permanent or temporary. There are places where it's only provided for permanent advisory boards. So I'll just, for example purposes, again, say, the Commission on Equity compared to a ad hoc art task force. And then, I think one of the questions to consider as we're looking at the advisory boards here at the city is also individuals who are participating on regional advisory boards as well on behalf of the city of Lacey, or as the city of Lacey's representative. What I do want to make a note of is that there could be other considerations that I did not see in the research, and certainly want to welcome a space for that. And in addition to that, to also just make a note that any program that would be considered by the city would need to meet, all federal tax requirements, and that it would take some time to develop on the back end because of all of the tracking that we would need to do in order to implement a program like this. So, again, the point of tonight is just to have a conversation and recognizing that there are a lot of details that would still need to be flushed out as part of this program.
What do you mean by tracking?
Yeah, so, going back to, depending on how the awards are given out, there would be some requirements on, hey, is it an attendance based? We have to keep that with federal requirements, making sure that we are tracking, what funding is provided to different individuals.
Oh, okay. So you were like tracking location. I was like,
For your income tax.
Correct. Yep.
that's.
Yeah, I have a question regarding the federal tax requirements. So think this compensation, would it be taxable? Or would it be grossed up or not taxed?
I think those are all details that we'd certainly want to take a look into, but what I did find is that there are programs where you are essentially a vendor and you have a W-9. So it would function very much like any other type of payment. That's a great question. They're all good questions so far. So I think Commissioner Blackburn, to get to your question about tracking, some options that I have seen by going through the research here are provided in your staff report. So I just want to say these are a high level overview. And again, what I'm here tonight is for a conversation. But option number one that was listed is, the no change option. So the provide no stipends by keeping the current advisory body structure. And that's currently what the city of Lacey does. A second option could be to provide stipends up to $500 or another determined amount. Again, we want to do our research on the Volunteer Protection Act and see what that is. For every advisory body member with attendance requirements. And so I provided an example of the city of Bend, Oregon. So this is what they are proposing to do, is to provide all advisory board members with a stipend up to $500.
A year?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep. Great clarification.
yeah. I assumed that, but I kept scrolling down, and couldn't see that was per month, per year. Per year.
It's a great clarification. So these are all per year options. So option 3 could be to provide stipends up to $500 or other determined amount for members of advisory bodies experiencing financial hardships with attendance requirements. And an example of this is the city of Durham, North Carolina. That's currently what their stipend program is. Option 4 would be to provide stipends up to $500 or other determined amount for members of advisory bodies experiencing financial hardship with attendance requirements. and then to provide stipends of lesser amounts. And I just used the example here of $250 for other members of advisory bodies with attendance requirements. So an example is the city of Olympia, where they provide advisory body members a stipend of $25 per meeting with the option to waive, and then participants who certify as low income receive $50 per meeting attended. So back to the tracking question, it would be about the attendance of the meeting. And then option 5, some other option that might not be contemplated at this point in time with the research we've gone over. So before we get into the discussion, I just want to, again, tonight is here for discussion. We anticipate the budget impact would be somewhere between $20,000 to $45,000 to implement. Something we'd also need to consider is cleaning up the Lacey Municipal Code. When you read through the Lacey Municipal Code, there are references to each of the advisory bodies, and it talks specifically about compensation. And so we'd certainly want to talk about stipends in the LMC should this move forward. The other thing that implementing a program like this would have a really good nexus with is another thing that's found in our diversity, equity, and inclusion draft strategic plan. And that would be to start capturing demographic data on participation on advisory boards. And this lines up again with our community access and engagement goal, particularly our engagement benchmark 1, which is to collect demographic data of boards, commissions, and ad hoc advisory groups, evaluate the advisory board application process to determine if the process can be more accessible. And then with the goal of advisory board membership increasingly matches the community demographics, for example, race, ethnicity, sex, age, etc. So with that, that is the end of my presentation, and I would really just like to have a conversation with you all and gather some thoughts and get some direction on some steps forward.
Shannon, this is Kim. I apologize for maybe that's already been explained, but now the legislation passed that this is an option, right? The city or the city can choose to provide stipend, right? Or you do not have to. Is it you must, or is it option?
Yeah, Commissioner Sauer, so my understanding is cities can provide this. There was legislation that passed through the state, but I believe that was specific for state advisory bodies. So that was not necessarily applicable to city or other local jurisdictions, advisory bodies. But this is something that the city can do if it chooses to.
Oh, okay. So we don't know for sure then. We're just discussing the I don't know, details of what if. How?
Yeah, Commissioner Sauer. So really trying to get some comments and directions on pursuing a stipend program in the future. But at this point in time, it's not mandated by the state to do it. So it is something that the city would elect to do if it moved forward.
So it sounds like some of the commissions already have something like that. Do they have a policy that they already have developed that we could look at and not have to recreate the wheel?
Correct, Commissioner Hart, and that's where some of the examples for the options are coming from. And just as pointed out, the city of Olympia has started doing this last year, but there are a couple of other examples. The city of Bend and the city of Durham. There's a couple of other examples here in the Puget Sound too. So again, the options are kind of pulled from that information, but we can certainly use that as help as we continue to look at these programs.
Oh, I assume some of the other commissions had them, like the city council, something that we can kind of merge and make our own with what's already had on the other councils.
So Commissioner Hart, here at the city of Lacey, we currently don't have a stipend program for advisory boards. The commission does get paid as part of being, the city council does get paid as part of being the city council.
That's right. Okay. Got it.
And this is an exploratory kind of thing we're looking at here.
Right.
Yeah. It hasn't been decided that there will be a stipend program for advisory boards. This is purely an exploratory exercise.
Correct.
Mhm.
At this point,
Just want
correct.
to make sure, yeah, right.
Well, I think the $500 volunteer protection clause is really important because if we're calculating something to give something that's above, then we have to know how we're gonna protect that. If there is a way to up that protection level, right now won't protect anybody who receives more than 500. Is there a way to up that limit? No.
To my understanding, Vice Chair, no, it's, federal law.
So then what kind of protection if you happen to get $600 a year and you fell and broke your leg or whatever, the volunteer? I mean, what are you losing if you go beyond that, from regular people who have the protection?
So Commissioner, Vice Chair. I think this is certainly something that we want to look more into, but I think part of your question goes back to what Commissioner Blackburn was asking about tracking, right? And making sure that there is a mechanism in place that would prevent something like going excess of whatever the cap is. If that's for the VPA protection or if that is just an established cap in general.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. I just wonder what the liability for a person is if we say we have $50 a meeting, then that's $800 for the year. If we had 16 meetings, we gave $50, that's 800. So you're definitely above that. So I just wonder what the liability of those people who took in more.
So I have a question. What does that mean? The liability and protection? Is that, I guess I'm not so sure what that means. I mean, is that you get a tax break on this? This is going to be a taxable income, right? Whenever
Mhm.
you add more income to yourself, whether that was this or anything else. So what do you mean by protection? And so if it's less than $500, is it not taxable? I mean, what kind of a protection are we talking about? Not
Yeah,
sure.
so Commissioner Sauer, if it's less than $500, you are considered a volunteer, right? And so you have the personal liability protection. The idea is that if it's going over $500 at that point, is it,
Closer to an employee.
are you no longer acting in the capacity of a volunteer? Or are you a contractor or,
Mhm.
some other form
I
of
see.
employment? And I think the thing that I'm hearing is we obviously, like I mentioned in the staff report, need to do our due diligence on this. And so that's certainly something we're going to dive much deeper into as a city.
What's the liability for people?
Yeah, oftentimes boards and commissions, they have protection of, omissions and errors. So, if we say something that's absolutely wrong and someone files a claim, generally you're protected.
Indemnification.
For those types of things. So I don't know if there's a difference in that.
Yeah.
Under 500, over 500, maybe you fall under city or something else.
Hmm.
But they don't want to go that route, but under that, you generally protected for omissions and errors we can make.
Well, and Chair Brown, on that point, again, as part of our diligence, we'll certainly be reaching out
Yeah.
to our insurance provider to understand the full implications, but just wanted to make sure that we're all aware of the Volunteer Protection Act, and we'll come back with some more information on what that potential impact could be.
I just have general comment to make about volunteerism coming from a person that's a perpetual volunteer for decades.
Two of us, yeah.
I'd not like to see the stipend issue override the belief that we as citizens, I feel, have a responsibility to make a certain contribution to the betterment of our community. And to expect pay for everything one does. That's one element. And I know as we talk about equity, where we want inclusiveness, we don't want people being excluded from volunteering and serving if it's for economic reasons or these kinds of things. That's a different kind of set of criteria, but it's a matter of the heart. You know, if someone asked me to put a price tag on my years of service and hours of volunteerism, it's priceless.
Mhm.
You know, I served as a school board member for 20 years, and about 5 years into that, this legislature passed a provision that gave a stipend, an optional stipend for school board members in hopes of attracting a different segment of the community that wasn't stepping forward to serve as a school board member. And it was optional. It was optional. I never exercised it. It was more pain in the rear than it was, you know. And after years went by, when we really tried to analyze if making this stipend available had improved the attraction of school board members to run for local school boards, if that stipend made a difference, and it didn't. Those who were committed to serving and serving young people in education were still coming. And for the most part, folk like me, we opted out of the stipend. It was general fund money, citizen taxpayer money. You know, I had to step forward to volunteer. Why should school district taxpayer money be paying me to come to a meeting? But that was my attitude.
Mhm.
It was my commitment that edged me on. So I'd not like to see people pursuing some of these volunteer boards and committees because there's a stipend involved. So I just toss that out as a general comment because this could be a rabbit hole that we never find the exit door to. I understand though, the need to be inclusive of people who would like to serve and can't afford to, childcare, transportation, you know, this kind of thing. But we need to balance it, and whatever policy we come up with, make sure we balanced out the civic duty to serve and the need to make that service equitable to people. So I'll just make that as a general statement without looking at any particular segment of a potential policy or whatever. But having experienced that optional stipend kind of thing for volunteer service, my feeling was I knew there was no pay when I decided to run for the school board.
Mhm.
And so for those who were running because they can get $50 a meeting, you know, so be it. But different strokes for different folk. And we're trying to add some options and gives, you know, so I just toss that out, that the civic duty to serve as volunteers to help make our community, the community we want it to be, shouldn't always be based on money. But we don't want good people who can provide that service to be excluded because of personal extenuating circumstances. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I think it'd be important as to how we communicate this. Say through the application process, you know, is it included that, oh, there will be a stipend if you join this commission and say it's optional? Then I think that would make a difference. You know, when I applied for this commission, you know, I didn't even think about any stipend or anything of that sort. So last month I was really surprised when you brought it up. Like, oh, they're considering that? You know, it surprised me. But then by the other token, I mean, this is a very small amount, you know, like $40 a week, once a month, $40 a month. You know, for someone who has some challenges, that would make a difference, you know, for others.
It might really make a difference for the youth council.
Mhm.
It might really make a difference for the housing, homelessness and housing task force. And
So
might
family who
really-
has to buy
might
dinner for the kids the day of the meetings. So they, like, you know,
Yeah,
they make a
Or
difference.
for parents, for,
Mhm.
you know, our people who have kids and stay at home,
Mhm.
yeah.
So it's good and bad. I mean, it's, yeah.
What
So we
about-
just need to be, you know, very thoughtful and deliberate as we really get into some actual, looking at some words that might be coming before us to consider. You know, if we're gonna do it, let's do it for everybody. Let's not be differentiating between who's low income and who's not. You know, so again, from the tracking thing, what kind of paperwork you want submitted in order to be clarified as low income for you to get this stipend versus that stipend, you know, that it just gets to be. There's some options in here where low
Right.
income would get one amount, other folks a
Right.
different amount,
You
you
know,
know.
some of us who retire may move down to being low income.
Well, it's, you know, I'm just saying, all that would have to enter into it, so let's just be considerate and deliberate and sensitive, you know, to the real needs out there, but not take away what volunteerism is all about.
Elaine, see that or something?
You,
Oh, yeah, I was gonna share a note, the one thing I wrote down while she was giving the presentation kind of tied into the thoughts that everybody had, which is pretty interesting. I said, it's important that these costs are partnered with community outreach and efforts to engage within all diverse local groups and organizations to involve them. So if like, this is where we're going to be putting, like you said, like the taxpayers' dollar into something that's, you know, kind of contributing to who comes, we need to ensure that we are making sure the people who come are like valuable people who come from diverse areas, and we have engagement and representation of everyone, if that makes sense, right? Like, we're going to put like money into ensuring that our volunteers get here. We don't want it to be, you know, just, you know, a bunch of people who do it for the money, you know, because their mom did it, or you know what I'm saying, or because, you know, we want it to be people who you know, come from all different areas. Like, okay, we have, you know, people from this church and then this organization and this person from this club, and it's all different types of cultures and representation, if that makes sense. So I just feel like if you're going to be investing in this way, we should also ensure that the people that we are investing in are truly valuable to these programs, if that makes sense. Like, I would hate for like council members to get money just to kind of just, you know, look good on paper or something like that. Like, I would wish for like really passionate people to be, you know, in these chairs. And so if we are going to incorporate as much money as we are, then I would also hope that we are incorporating just as much money into advertising or community outreach and things like that.
Chair Brown, Commissioner Hart has their hand raised.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I was listening to Alanis there and kind of reconsidering what I was gonna say. You know, would it be more, would it be better for somebody, especially if they kind of took a leadership position, you know, like chair and vice chair or a committee lead, as opposed to somebody who was just kind of there, but that was just something that was kind of dingling around in my head. And then I was listening to Alanis and was like, yeah, that makes even more sense, because you don't really want somebody who's just there year after year, year over year, just kind of holding a seat and letting everybody else do the work. So good point, Alanis.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it may be very encouraging for, you know, like youth council members and others, you know, for portfolio building, students, as you're preparing for college. You know, this is good, you know, serving on the commission,
Yeah.
you know, giving back to your community. Those types of things are great for your portfolio building as you applying for colleges and universities. It really can make a difference.
Right.
Mhm.
If I didn't have that one specific teacher and that one COVID year, and I never go through the announcements. I know I'm supposed to look at the announcements every day in every class, so I'm gonna tell you guys and only you guys, I actually never, ever look at the
Oh.
announcements. And the one time I did, it was like, it's the youth council, apply here by tomorrow. And I was like, okay. And I just, you know, did it randomly, you know, it wasn't like, it was something that was really advertised, something that I had known about for a long time, and I was waiting to come of age to finally do it. You know what I'm saying? Like there isn't a lot of awareness of it in itself within like the youth community. Like if that one teacher didn't post that one post at that one time, I wouldn't be here right now. You know, so that's what I mean by if we're going to start paying people to come, then we should also start, you know, investing money in, okay, how are we actually reaching out to the community to get people in these chairs that are truly passionate about what they're talking about in the area that they're, you know, advising in.
I bet there's another little section in our DEI strategy. This is just one strategy for bringing in people and the recruiting and advertising and stuff is really important.
And I'm sure, you know, you get feedback from the Equity Commission, but I'm sure all of these commissions will be providing their input to the council for consideration, and then a decision will get made, so.
Oh, well, that's an interesting
Well,
question.
and that is a very interesting thought, and it's, you know, some of these commissions, like I mentioned, Chair Brown only meet once a year, so I'm not sure that every single advisory board could be gone to in a timely fashion. But what I'm hearing is maybe some additional perspective from maybe some of the more frequent meeting advisory bodies. So
See if we have similar, you know, input on this, if we're thinking along the same lines.
And one other point I'd make, as we're advising the city of Lacey on the whole issue of equity, inclusion, and diversity, for the city of Lacey to take a position on a stipend paying program as a message to the community that we are serious when we say we want equity and inclusion, to the point where we don't want anyone to not be considered or to not come forward based upon socioeconomic ability. So that would be a very important positive statement for the city to make. So from that point of view, is that saying, put your money where your mouth is kind of thing. So that would really propel the city of Lacey forward, to say we're serious when we say we want inclusion and diverse involvement. And we, you know, and whatever barrier, we want to remove it. And if the stipend will help attract other kinds of people, you know, so be it. So that's that, you know, if you go that way, that would be a powerful statement for this city to make.
thank you, Commissioner Jackson. I think another thing too that you brought up with your comments too about the school board is that a potential program would also allow us to track to see if this is a tool that is actually reducing barriers, and if not, what might need to be done either within this program or other programs, like Commissioner Blackburn just mentioned about, you know, continuing to put efforts into community engagement and outreach to get, you know, representative bodies on our advisory boards. Commissioner Sauer, any thoughts or ideas you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, so far listening to everyone, I agree. I do believe that, you know, this could be beneficial to allow more people to think about getting involved in the, this type of volunteering, that they don't have to choose between going to work, and it's something that you already talked about. So I think this would be a really where the, you know, you're putting your message with money. So I do see the benefit of doing that. And for us to give that option, almost like when you go to jury duty, I never take the money that they, $10 or something that they give you. It's almost like where everyone should have option to waive that or do something, so that if, you know, that's really up to you. You don't have to make an announcement that you actually going to use that money, or you don't need that money. That is something up to you. So that individual's need will be met if that you really just want to show and you want to be the good citizen and do your duty by doing volunteering and give option someone to come and be part of this. I think it'll really open up, make more people to think about, actually, it's not something like, oh, that's not really me, I can't do that. Now, maybe it's a option that you can consider. You don't have to pay for daycare or something. So I see both. I mean, I think it'll be good to go with that route.
What I hear from you, part of what I heard was, if you want to opt out, then that's your own personal choice, that whether you opt out, whether you have this level of support or you have this level of support is nobody else's business. It's a private thing that happens on your application, and that if you're a parent or you're low income, just have are you below such and such? Check the box, you get this, so that it isn't something that we're, this
Yeah, I don't
about how much we get or don't.
I don't
get.
think we should ask questions like that. I mean, it's, I don't know, if you will pay, just give that option to get paid, just like jury duty, and then give that form. Do you want to waive it? Then you can fill that out or something, so you don't actually get paid. But it needs to be offered anonymously, that everybody have that option to make that decision on their own. But the fact is that we get to announce it in the community that there is, hey, you come and participated in this, you get paid. I think that may open up more people to consider to get involved. It's not something people who can afford, who perhaps retired, or someone who only people who get to afford to do that, versus pretty much opening the door for anyone if you are willing.
I would be interested in knowing how Olympia handled it. So they've been doing it for a year or so now. How do they communicate it? What's been the response?
And they have the 2-tier.
Right, yeah, has there been some increased diversity as a result of it? So since they have a new program, North Bend, some of the others may have been around longer, but Olympia is very new and they're our neighbors. So it's interesting to see how they
Sure.
communicated it.
Chair Brown, I would certainly be happy to reach out to Olympia and get more information so we can have some more information as part of our next conversation.
I just also wrote down that I didn't think it should be advertised as coming with a stipend. So when we do this community outreach and we let people know that these opportunities are actually available to volunteer within your community, we shouldn't paint it as, you can come here and get $50 when you come, right? Because then we'll have people coming for $50, but not to, serve for equity. I feel like it might be a little bit more beneficial to present it as something that, or even if it is presented as money set aside for, transportation support or, things people need when they do need it, rather than you can come and get money if you come, right? Because then it kind of shifts the reasoning behind what we do.
But there also is a process that you apply to the commissions anyway. And so there's a lot more to look at whether they would fit.
We can incorporate
with the
that into
commission.
applications as well. Like, do you identify as low income, or, do you struggle with housing, transportation issues? And this is all something that can maybe be communicated prior to joining the advisory board, so we can let these people know, hey, we have support for you. We want you here, and we have money set aside for, low income advisory board members who do struggle with transportation.
So Commissioner, Blackburn, let me let me play the other side here for a couple of seconds. Number one, in the research on how other cities have done this, it has been something that they do promote. And part of it is because, when you are maybe somebody who is faced with a barrier and you don't see the option up front for that barrier to be reduced, it stops you from moving, further along in the process. So, waiting to be able to relay that information, and certainly we'd have to change our LMC to allow it as well. So it'd be knowledge that's out there, could continue a barrier to some extent.
Yeah. I definitely see that perspective. I don't think it has to be a secret at all. If that's what you thought. I mean, don't tell anybody where you're giving any money. No, I don't think it has to be a secret, just not like, you want $50? Come join the Commission on Equity,
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
No, but I, in getting with that, opportunity to, to make an impact in your community, opportunities for stipend, just kind of that kind of advertising. You don't have to put exactly what it is, but that may be something that may encourage somebody to come forward and step forward and say, hey, I'd like to do this. They may not even see the stipend part. They may just be, hey, I like to make an impact in my community. Let me apply. There's going to be an application process that maybe on there, it may say, hey, if there was an opportunity for a stipend, would that be something that would also encourage you to be a part of participating in this and then go forward from there? Because like you all said just before, there was an application process. And there was kind of a mock interview process as well with the board. So, you'll get a chance to weed out who you would like to weed out.
Yeah, obviously, like less than $500 a year is not going to be enough for you to, it's not going to be significant enough financially. It's just, yeah, I don't know what kind of impact it will have to people. I mean,
Could be Christmas money for somebody.
yeah, so we're talking about what, like less than $50 each time you come.
Mhm.
And then we also think about, what does that mean then? What if I missed a meeting? So is that like whenever you come and be present, or is it something like that, you think, if it happens?
So Commissioner Sauer, all of the programs that I have seen, there's been an attendance requirement. So it's when you show up to a meeting, again, whether it's in person or in a hybrid environment, but you are present at the meetings.
And then I also noticed in your document, like 90-minute, but yeah, we never really had that kind of time limit. We didn't finish it. We didn't end it because we just had a 90-minute discussion, right? So that also, I don't know, are we making things a little more complicated than what it is? I mean, we go by the agenda and issue.
Yeah, so Commissioner Sauer, just to go back to the 90 minutes for a second, that wasn't to state that meetings could only be 90 minutes in length. I was just using it as a way to estimate the total number of time that various advisory body members might be expending per a year on their advisory, bodies. So that would not prohibit an advisory body from, holding a 3-hour meeting like I know this group typically does, or from, let's say we are going to wrap up this meeting tonight now, that would still be okay as well. So you would be able to get through, the full agenda as long as you weren't running into other time constraints. For example, this body has a time constraint of 8:30 as being, the longest a meeting will go. So just to clarify, that would still allow meetings to be longer than 90 minutes or less than 90 minutes. That was just for purposes of showing what it looks like.
And for the record, we only had one meeting that went to 8:30. For the whole year. If we passed 8 o'clock, that was about our usual. So for the record.
We forgive you, Commissioner Jackson. This is like,
I apologize, 2.5
That's okay.
hours.
Does that give you what you were asking for, more than you thought you did, or
I think I've got
you go
some
from there?
some good direction. One thing I just want maybe just a little bit more conversation on is the difference between a permanent body and a temporary body. From what I'd heard, taking a look at, equal compensation across all bodies, but I just wanted to confirm that that was part of kind of the thought process when you were thinking about this.
I like it for both,
I-
because if you're passionate about a particular subject like homelessness and you step up to participate, then I think you should be, you receive a stipend, for that, even though it's for a short period of time, a few months, maybe a year.
I think the reasoning to attract everybody's voice, it's the same reason for a permanent body or a temporary body.
And this budget is, wow, 20 to 45,000, that's a
I can
huge
tell.
gap.
Mhm.
Well, and then again, that's to allow for any number of possibilities, so.
$10 a meeting versus $40. Yeah.
hmm.
The ballpark.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you all for the input and feedback tonight. And like I said, this is, an initial conversation, and I will come back before this body with a actual recommendation for you all to take a look at for the second go round.
Yeah.
If I could just add one other comment. We're talking about stipends for meetings. The time a person gives to the meeting. If we're gonna, just lay it out there as we are recruiting and trying to get other folk, the preparation for a meeting is a heck of a lot longer than the meeting itself. And I'll go back to my school board experience. So there was a 2.5, maybe 3-hour school board meeting twice a month. But for the hours I spent reading reports, preparing to discuss, far outweighed the meeting itself. But I knew that when I bought into running for a school board meeting. So as we're talking about trying to attract people interested in volunteering, they need to know it's more than just a meeting. So we're talking about compensation. It's just for the meeting itself versus I spent 4 hours, looking through this stuff and I submitted an invoice. So I just throw that out there as we're talking.
Yeah.
So it's a great point, and certainly, when you're looking at table B, wanted to highlight that, to your point, there is a lot of time that also goes outside of just the 90 minutes in a meeting. There are, reviewing my wonderfully written staff reports. I'm sure you were all thinking it. Other supporting documents, municipal codes, the University of Washington study that I sent you all. So taking a look at that takes a lot of time. And in addition, something else is not just, the arrangement of childcare, but you got to arrange the childcare, you have to drop, children off, you have to travel for time. So there is a lot of other time factors that do go into participating in advisory body meetings.
Yes, and for, those who worked in an exempt role in their careers, they're accustomed to hours beyond the 8 to 5. They're accustomed to those types of things. But those who haven't, this is something I think a point that should be made during the interview process, during the application process, that the commission involves not just
Meeting
an
time.
hour and a half meeting, but there's prep time. You need to come to the meeting prepared. Then there may be some work to do after the meeting. There may be phone calls. You may be called upon to participate in the community on any particular event, like city councilman, was at the church, you know, on was it a Monday eat on a holiday? Those types of things, they have to understand it. For someone who's new to a commission or board or something, those are things I think should be communicated with them and they have a clear understanding before they say, I want to move forward. Not thinking, I just show up to a meeting and that's it. Everything happens in that 90 minutes
Yeah,
for the month.
yeah,
It's just not the case.
thank you. That was my only remaining thought there.
Well, as we wrap up the conversation on this portion of tonight's meeting, I just want to say that I appreciate all of you being here and providing all the input tonight that you did provide. So thank you. I know it takes a lot of your time, so I appreciate it.
We knew that when we bought in.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's the point I'm trying to make, you know.
You didn't tell me I was gonna get a stipend when I agreed to join this commission when I was flying. Great. Okay, so we're ready to move on to our business item B, the draft land acknowledgement and land acknowledgement policy review.
Well, thank you again, Chair Brown. The last thing I had for you all tonight as part of our business items is just to return back with a second draft. And what I want to say up front is that we haven't sent this out yet to the Nisqually tribe or the Squaxin tribe for feedback, because I wanted to have one more opportunity to take a look at it with you all and then reach out for feedback and then bring it back kind of in its final form with a recommendation. So I do want to highlight a couple of additions here since the last time we talked. So give me just a second to share my screen. So in your packet, you can see all of the additions that I have provided in it are in red. So the first thing that we added some additions to is just a little bit more of the knowledge of what land acknowledgements are. Really highlighting that this is part of many Indigenous peoples' practices and cultural protocols. And highlighting the Duwamish tribe webpage that really provides kind of a great quote on, how it's been used by Indigenous tribes for time immemorial.
I like that. We're not making it up. It's been used, the acknowledgement of the land has been used forever, and we're just acknowledging the land and the people. And I really like that piece right there.
The second edition, again, just kind of in the providing more background on what land acknowledgements are, just again highlighting, what the land acknowledgement purpose is, expressing support for Indigenous communities, bringing awareness of histories that have led to past and current development of areas, including a history of dispossession, displacement, colonialism, cultural erasure, and broken treaties. Recognizing the positive impacts of Indigenous history and of Indigenous culture on the greater community, and really highlighting that this is a first step to action and building better relationships and not intended to be a performative act. So like I mentioned, this is certainly something that in the future we want to run by the Nisqually tribe as well as the Squaxin tribe. So that is still pending. There was some language tweaking in the actual land acknowledgement. And again, I appreciate all your feedback on this. So you can see all of the additions here. And then one of the big ones I wanted to highlight was some additional language down towards the bottom that this land acknowledgement and the Nisqually-Lacey Accord of 2011 are small steps towards true allyship. The city commits to partnering, we commit to partnering with the tribal people of the Treaty of Medicine Creek to continue to uplift the voices, experiences, histories of Indigenous people of this land and beyond. And we recognize and have the responsibility to call attention to the histories of dispossession, forced removal, and abridged treaty rights that allowed our nation, state, and city to develop as it is today. Very similar language was also incorporated in the abbreviated version, but much more succinctly. And beyond that, I don't believe a lot of other additions happened to the policy, but I just wanted to bring this back in front of the commission and see if there was any other comments or feedback before reaching out for feedback from the Nisqually and Squaxin tribes.
Well, I appreciated the inclusion of the suggestions I made last time and reading it freshly with these in there. It really is a stronger, much more powerful statement, especially just changing the word that to who, from a thing to a person. Just that kind of respectfulness. I don't have any further comments. Those changes satisfied me.
Kim, Commissioner Hart, anybody?
No, I like it.
Well, as far as next steps then, like I said, I'll reach out to the Nisqually and Squaxin tribe and then hopefully bring back a final addition for recommendation to the Lacey City Council.
All right.
This feels really good.
Great.
Okay. We're moving right along tonight. Commissioner reports, focus groups. That was something that we talked about last month and we wanted to move toward here in 2023. And we talked about potentially making the African-American focus group the first one of the year. So do we have any commissioner that has an update on that? Do we have anything on that?
Well, we talked about 4 for the year and that the African-American community would be the one held in the first quarter of the year. And the only additional input I'd make to it, if we were talking about locations and venues, that the New Life Baptist Church is offering its venue as a place of gathering for whatever date we choose to do it, whatever time. And glad to work in partnership with the city in hosting such a gathering. So I did get that, squared away. But with no specific date at this point, we just said the first quarter. So we're talking about late March, early April. Is that still the first quarter? Or is that the
Yes.
second quarter?
Well, March first.
Okay, somewhere
30th.
towards, warmer weather, somewhere like that. So once we decide when we want to try and schedule it, the venue is ready whenever we're ready. And work in partnership with outreach, publicity, purpose statements, that kind of thing. So I don't have anything additional to that to share.
So Shannon, what would you need from us to get that moving? So we have a venue, so looking at dates and then all the communication documents and tools.
I think the earlier we can get the dates dialed in, and I don't know if there are days of the week that are not good for New Life Baptist Church.
Wednesday would be about the only day of the week that, but any other time.
Wednesday.
Not available.
Oh, not
Available. Yeah, that's
From-
a standard Bible study night. And we're talking evening, right? We're talking weekday versus weekend, right? But other than Wednesday, it's just a matter of when this group wants to set a date and get it on the church's calendar to make sure it doesn't conflict with anything else.
From the city's perspective, Thursdays are not good days because I need to be at the city council
Okay.
meeting. But I think if we can get a couple of dates and send them over to me, Commissioner Jackson, we
Okay.
can start determining, finalizing that date and then working to reach out to individuals who might be interested or organizations that might be interested. And then we can start pushing on social media to kind of a broader net as well.
So should we be looking at, say, early March or somewhere like that?
Yeah, I
Okay,
think, early to mid-March. And
Okay.
so we're looking at Monday, Tuesday, or potentially Friday. So
Mhm.
Wednesday, Thursday out,
Monday, Tuesday, probably versus a Friday.
yeah.
So a Monday or Tuesday in March.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's no Monday night football, so Monday should work fine. Monday should be-
Unfortunately. I guess another thing to consider too, I know we've just outlined, weekdays, but I mean, from, I guess, the commissioner's perspectives, would it make sense to consider a weekend?
I wouldn't mind. Just need to know ahead of time.
Sure. If it's far enough ahead with adequate outreach and publicity, a Saturday,
So we could-
would work in our community.
Yeah, schedule 2 dates, say a Monday and a Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, and that way, those who can't make the weekday evening
What we did
to
with
potentially come Saturday.
Mhm.
Yeah, we did that before, right? Yeah,
community meeting.
And that didn't work very well for us.
yeah, neither day did, but
I think we should just
COVID.
pick a date and go with it, one shot. And maybe a Saturday would be the best, you know, for working people, different shifts. Um,
What about daycare?
we'll get back. We'll get back. Zeroed in on March.
Commissioner Hart, that's a great question.
was
So Commissioner Hart asked, is there a possibility of childcare during the meeting?
It's a
Um,
possibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
church has
Mm.
facilities and we can always ask for volunteers to.
It's a
to
possibility. If
watch
it's
the
something
kids.
we want childcare to be
Mhm.
considered, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
absolutely.
You know, maybe somebody, a youth that may need volunteer hours, that could be something that,
And so that's certainly something I will need to look into from the city's perspective as well.
Mhm.
So let me get back on that item, Commissioner Hart.
okay.
okay,
Mhm.
very good.
And then in terms of working on questions, or is it?
We had a set of questions that we used
Uh-huh.
and
We should
we'll take a look at those and see if they're still good. Yeah, we had a set of like 7 questions, I think it was, that we asked. Mhm.
So commissioners, I will resend out in my follow-up sometime later this week, the questions that were asked previously, so you all can take a look at them.
Anything else on that? Any other focus groups we want to look at as
Second
a
quarter.
second quarter that we want to just put on the table to consider?
I don't know if this is necessarily a focus group, but meeting with the school district. Or, representatives, equity representatives from the school district, or just
Can
representatives. in
you
general.
say that a little louder?
I said, school district representatives.
Oh.
I
Well,
don't
that
know
was
if
an
that's
agenda
necessarily-
item that's, I think Shannon's gonna talk about
Oh.
under her,
Yeah.
under her staff report.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do LGBTQ plus, in the
Second
Second
quarter.
second quarter. I think that's
Great.
that's
if you can-
merited.
Great, if you can work on a location, then
Mhm.
we'll be able to discuss that.
Yeah.
Follow. Great.
Okay.
Maybe we can go on and book the third and fourth quarter too, so we can at least, say
Mhm,
the coming later, the third quarter will be, this community and
mhm.
Mm.
Yes.
so what were the other two?
Well,
Mr.
what about
Sauer,
some with people with disabilities? People
Okay.
with disabilities, and
Very-
I don't know
I'm
what
sure
was the
They would love
last.
some representation, especially at this table. I feel like it would be very powerful to have Indigenous representation on the Commission on Equity.
Yeah, actually, when Shannon, when you send our acknowledgement out, you could say that we have that in our mind in the future to have a focus group with Indigenous,
Mhm.
sort of put the idea out.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna refer to it as a focus group. A focus group is a much smaller group of people. 7 to 10 people. We're talking about
I don't think
kind of
that's what
a
we called it last time.
community cafe kind of setting or,
Engagement session.
it's something, but not focus group. Focus group is a set, small number of people versus
Yeah.
a community gathering of particular community groups. That's what we're talking about. Solid.
Mm.
And Commissioner Sauer, you think there would be opportunity for, say, a focus group with the Asian community or with the Korean community or any particular Asian community group?
The API.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, Asian immigrant community, we definitely, they should be one there as well.
So third quarter for them.
So we look at third quarter
Yeah.
or third quarter ADA and then fourth quarter Asian, third quarter ADA.
So
And,
when we say third quarter, what is it, September through, okay, so,
Uh,
July,
right?
July to October.
July through September?
yes. Well, no, we're looking at ADA third quarter, then Kim,
Yeah.
API fourth quarter.
I see, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Mhm.
So commissioners, just to read over what I'm hearing is, for the first quarter, the African American Black community. For the second quarter, the LGBTQ plus community. The third quarter, disabilities community or community with disabilities. And then the fourth quarter, having Asian communities.
AP, it's called API.
Yep.
Asian
Asian
or,
Pacific and Islander.
Yeah, API.
so if we don't have, yeah, then do we not have immigrant population? They're a little different than,
We're all we're all immigrants, except, I mean,
So Commissioner Sauer, are you asking specifically for the Asian community or just broadly as immigrants, just as a broader category?
I'm just thinking asking that to myself because they're kind of like, they can be kind of together. 'Cause a lot of them are from that, but that's really not true though, but because we have immigrant community, diverse immigrant community.
Right.
Mhm.
So that's not really true. So the Asian community separate and immigrant community, I don't know. I think we need to hear from immigrant community.
Could that be like both in the same, not in the same setting, but maybe two different meetings in that quarter? Like if we did a Friday for API, maybe a Saturday for immigrant? And see if maybe we got, a different needs, compare the needs.
So Commissioner Hart, again, per our work plan, we want to try for, one focus
Yeah.
group meeting per quarter.
Okay.
But I think certainly this is a good start and, looking at 2023, we can continue to think about what would be great for 2024, especially after the commission gets a few under their belts of experience, see how that goes. And moves forward based off of that. But again, just as kind of a starting point, I would recommend we focus on 4 to start and really building from there.
Okay. I'll
Yeah,
keep
Commissioner
some
Sauer, I
notes.
think, you, since fourth quarter, you've taken ownership of it. I think make a recommendation as to if you want to do immigrant community or if you want to do Asian API during the fourth quarter, and let us know what you decide.
and each time we have a focus group, then we encourage people to at the end of next year to apply to become a commissioner.
I think that's a great point.
Mhm.
And for all of the focus groups, I think moving forward, we still have some time. So certainly we can think about, that, come back at the next meeting. So Commissioner Sauer, to give, some more time and thought, we have some time.
Okay, good.
Good. Any other commissioner reports? Okay, then our director.
All right, well, commissioners, I just have a couple of things. The first item is that we do have a meeting on Wednesday. So 2 days from today, on January 25th, we will continue the conversation on corporate sponsorships with the Parks Board. So I just want to remind everybody of that. The other reminder that I wanted to provide is that the Lacey Cultural Celebration is coming up on March 4th. I filled out an application for us to have a booth there, and so we can certainly figure out the arrangements, for that, what that looks like. But it would be good, this time around to potentially have maybe a question that we want to ask and interact with individuals on as we're there. So something to think about, in return, potentially sending maybe some considerations, but also we can pick up at our late February meeting. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that, you know, we have reached out to North Thurston Public Schools and they are tentatively scheduled to come to our February meeting to provide an update. They were scheduled to come to tonight's meeting, but unfortunately, due to circumstances outside of anybody's control, could not be here. So I just wanted to let you all know we are working to get representation here for a conversation. It just did not happen here in January, so we're looking for February. On that same note, Pope John Paul II High School has also indicated that they'd like to have some time just to talk about some of their equity work as well. So we're looking for a time to do that. We do have a very busy meeting planned for our February meeting. Speaking of 3.5 hours plus. So in addition to, you know, North Thurston Public School representatives joining us, we're also going to be taking a look at the Lacey Parks Culture and Recreation Comprehensive Plan. This is a larger document, so I do want to get it out to you all well in advance. So you might get an email from me in the next couple of weeks just to give you the document to take a look at.
Or did we get that already?
We saw a portion of their participation and then some of their goals. And now this will be kind of more,
Cool.
yep,
Oh,
a larger portion of the plan. And then we'll also be coming back with some utility wrap potentials that we want the commission to take a look at so we can continue moving forward with that project. So we'll have Erin Quinn Balcho joining us for that meeting as well. The final thing I just wanted to make you all aware of is we are also looking to set up a meeting with our the DEI coordinators of the various jurisdictions. And so we're hoping to do that here in the next couple of months. So I look forward to being able to provide you all with an update. And so as part of that, Chair Brown, we might ask you if you're available to come and join for the first meeting as well.
Okay.
And that is all that I have under my director's report. And I just want to make a note that if we adjourn now, we're at exactly 90 minutes.
That's what happens when you get a new chair.
Just want to make one comment regarding the cultural celebration. As I move around Lacey and Thurston County, people know that the Equity Commission exists. And they're asking questions. What are you doing? You know, fill me in. So at the cultural celebration, we have a booth, you know, the more information we have available to share, you know, better. And I think we would be responding to some very specific questions and offers of support and those types of things more at this year's. We were brand new last time, so yeah, I think our role is something that we really need to be able to share, you know, effectively at that event. Mhm.
Chair Brown, that actually just had an interesting idea for that. And I think if the commission is interested in this, we've been working on our community connectivity analysis of having kind of a streamlined board of what's out there and who's missing. So that way the community can help fill in some of the gaps that we might have on our community connectivity analysis might be
And
one
find out
thing.
organizations and groups that, yes, absolutely. I like that.
And we can think forward to our engagement sessions and we can target those organizations that fit into our group.
Right. We can actually just like utilize the community culture celebration to engage with fellow cultures, and I would definitely recommend spreading that same message on to any other boards outside of the Commission on Equity. So even just like, you know, the regular city council, you know, using this opportunity as outreach to go into the community and, you know, kind of you know, let them know that they are looking for volunteers and that the community is looking for opportunities to involve different cultures in everything that we do, right? It's a really great way. It's, you know, everybody's all kind of in the same place. So to have people there, you know, almost scouting in a sense, like, hey, we want you to serve on, you know, this commission because you feel like, you know, your representation will be great here, things like that.
Yeah, is it an opportunity for the booth to be a City of Lacey booth versus just equity booth, because we have information to share. I'm thinking back to the Juneteenth event, where it was a combined group where you had the police there and some others that can talk about other commission boards and things that the city is doing. It can share more information. That's something to consider.
Mm.
Unless we say we want our own just commission, so I think that's something we need to think about or talk about. Do we want to stand alone, or would we prefer a combined booth?
I think that we should represent ourselves while representing everyone, right? So it should still be the Commission on Equity table, but take advantage of the opportunity that we have to support any other areas of the city that we can support in. Like, oh, you like your firefighter? Well, we have a firefighter commission right for you. Here's their card right here. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if we have one of those. That's just an example.
Well, even they provided information.
Right,
for
so
our
it's not
booth. That would
like,
be-
we can kind of take our name away
Mhm.
from the booth, because we want to be the highlight, but we also want to advocate for everybody, so.
And we're talking about booths, but we can also discuss, do we want to do something in addition to a booth? There was just booth, turn the
Mhm.
corner, booth. How do we want to make ourselves as the Equity Commission stand out from the crowd, so to speak? So we might can rattle that around in our heads. We were new last year, so we just blended with the crowd, but can we do something differently to really have everybody, most people leaving there knowing, oh, we have an Equity Commission in this community. I didn't know that.
You could do a spin the wheel, make it interactive and engaging. Do you guys have something like that there at the city council?
Love
Because
the
if not,
interactive
I do have something, I can't remember what I got as a spin the wheel or like a tic-tac-toe. I've got something where we can engage and make it fun and make them learn a little bit about what we do, come up with some fun questions or what have you.
Well, I can certainly take a look at what we have available, but Commissioner Hart, we might be reaching out to you if you have something in mind for an interactive element. I know we have a few, but I'm not sure what they are.
Sure.
One final question, and I don't know if the city has the budget for it or not, but polos, City of Lacey, Commission on Equity, or CAB, or something, to distinguish ourselves. I mean, at the MLK celebration, I put my name tag on,
Yeah.
and several people wanted to take pictures with me because they thought I was, somebody special or something,
You were.
But no, I just, put it on.
Commission member.
So
Chair.
those types of things would help us to be the Equity Commission. We all showed up the same,
Right,
polos on or something along those lines, and I'm willing to buy my own polo. If the design, that type of thing, if we could at least consider that.
yeah, the Lacey Council, we have t-shirts and jackets, so I don't see why we shouldn't have some. Like, as you can see, I typically wear it to, I don't have on my clothes right now, but I typically wear my Lacey Youth jacket to my Commission on Equity meetings and my other meetings. And yeah, that badge is really powerful for absolutely no reason. Walking by one time, my friends, you were like, we really need your help. There's something really bad going on at the school, and we just don't really know how to advocate for ourselves. So, I wore my badge in there and just to scare them a little bit. And the principal was like, oh, and shaking my hand and stuff. Like, you didn't shake their hand. Why are you shaking my hand? So the badge is very important. It's very important. It's a necessity.
So that kind of gets at what I meant by not just another booth lined up in a row. How can we set ourselves apart and be, go that extra step? But I'm with you. I'd be willing to pay for hoodie, sweatshirt, jacket, whatever, without it being a city expense. If the logo can be figured out on, and here it is.
Yeah,
If you're interested as an option.
Right. Yeah, I'm Mr. Conservative, I would go with a polo, but like Alana's, whatever is,
Whatever.
So commissioners, we can certainly get some swag. It sounds like a t-shirt or a hat or something.
That's the word.
So why don't you all send me what a good size is for you and we can work on it. Because we will need to get those in soon because March 4th, believe it or not, is a month away.
Mm,
So I'd be happy to work on that.
oh, great.
And the only other thing I would say about that cultural celebration, that as much as possible that we get full commission participation. There's a big turnout at that celebration, and the more the merrier. It's a big space to cover.
Yep, I'm there. I've got a booth, so I'm sure I could probably wrangle along one of my kiddos to work it while I come over there for a little bit. So, or see if they'll put me right next to y'all and then I can do double duty.
Be out of town.
I'll be there.
All right. Are you cooking this year, certain food?
I don't think I'll do that this year.
All right.
Oh,
Just gonna be probably just Lacey.
You know how last year they gave people the opportunity to kind of go on stage and perform something?
mhm.
I was thinking we could perform, but then I was like, well, what are we gonna perform?
Mention
We
it now. Right.
We can do a Macarena out there, all of us.
Work us up a little bit.
We could do an inspirational quote. There you
Nice
go.
dance. Write it down here. I'm gonna
Spoken
let you all
word.
practice on your own time then, okay?
Okay, great. So I'll entertain the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right.
It's moved probably second that we adjourn the meeting at 8.
Good night, everybody.
7:10.
Good
All in
night.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All right, we got it done in record time.